Where did this bike come from? I haven't seen anything quite like this before, but what does this have to do with you, the viewer, right now? I need your help looking at this bike, the Q5 from Kixin. Now, if your first question is, I've never heard of Kixin, I would say, well, that's not a question. Now, for 17 years, Kixin has been an electronics manufacturer moving into the electric mobility space some 10 years ago. Since then, they have expanded into not only manufacturing and design, but making bikes and scooters for other companies to sell. There's a chance you've already seen a Kixin bike, maybe even ridden one. I probably have too. But this time, we do know what we're doing, so let's dive into the Q5. Kixin sent this out as a pre-production unit, so it's close to final, but not quite. And certainly, next manufacturing cycle, they can make bigger changes if they're warranted. So let's start with the frame, something that sets the bike apart in a big way. It looks streamlined, the way that the frame angles around the front tire and splits out to fork onto the rear tire with a big, wide open space. Now this gives the bike a look of movement, even when it's sitting at a standstill. Combined with the large 27.5-inch tires, it's already starting to sound like a modern crossover car. Now the frame is quite striking with its unique design incorporating new features. The frame is solid, striking a balance between eye-catching and functional. Instead of the regular top tube and down tube combo, the Q5 joins them together, not with a plastic fairing, but as a whole part of a metal casing that holds the big battery underneath. This is a 48-volt 13 amp hour pack that's fully integrated into this wide frame. This sleek bike is carting around a lot of power inside. The pack is held in place not just with a cradle, but also with a large wing nut and a locking metal plate at the bottom. After bouncing around on the bike for a while, it was still firmly in place and I had no worries about the pack coming out, even if I had my mind on other parts of the design. Now, I think the bike frame is really cool. A large space combined with the absent seat post tube, it leaves a lot of room for customization and design. I could totally see this going for companies utilizing the space for logos for rental fleets or in-house bike shop designs. One difficulty is that the bike is made for the young, or at least people with young legs. The frame is a step-over frame, but it also rides kind of high, mostly on account of those tires. Now we can't mosey around the fact that the metal frame, it's kind of heavy. The Q5 bike weighs in at 66 pounds, which isn't all that bad, but it is coming in heavier than the average electric hybrid. Now taking this dance partner out to the trails was surprisingly easy despite the high center of gravity. The front shock did really good and the rear hub motor was quite the powerhouse. Kixin has this motor listed at 650 watts, which I think they are actually throwing that much power through it. I'm going to assume that that's a peak rating of the motor, in which the Q5 did just fine. The throttle control had a real smooth ramp of power, but a very high top-end speed. With a bit of a runway, I could totally get the amps in play and get this bike to climb quite a steep hill, although the balance is still kind of high. Now let's get real for a second and admit to ourselves that most customers for a bike like this, they can go off-road, but they're going to be using it on the road most of the time. I mean, sure, the Intrepid will actually bustle around some trails, but yeah, the vast majority of the people using this bike will be among cars, sidewalks, and the bike lanes. Now on the road, the Q5 does really great. The eye-catching design is a safety feature all on its own, and the frame incorporates some really interesting lights. On the head tube rests a steady front light, and it is wrapped around on both sides by a set of 3 flashing green lights. It doesn't appear that these lights have any variance. They're not tied to the battery level, the speed, or any other metric. Like the frame itself, they add some passive safety awareness, and they do look pretty cool. The Q5 also includes a proper headlight on the front fork, which is much brighter and can actually be aimed at the road to see where you're going. Taking a look at the cockpit, the handlebars are really wide. This is great for off-road as it gives you a great sense of control and precision as you turn, even in tight spaces. And the display is very vibrant and bright. I can totally see exactly what's going on. The remote switch on the left is great for selecting everything, makes it super convenient. And the tread on these tires can get a lot of grip, even in some pretty loose terrain. Off-road, it did pretty good for the class of bike that this is. So what does this all come to? What do I think of the Q5 from Kixin? But with just one change, I think we have a winner on our hands. For about 4 years, I used an electric hybrid bike as a daily driver, and the Q5 checks a lot of those boxes. It looks very unique, which is important for maintaining safety and also confidence for the rider. The tall tires are more efficient, even if the tread is made for trails. The cadence-based pedal assist is a big cost saver, and the high-capacity battery is well prepared to handle that top speed. Now, since the company has been cooking mobility for some 10 years, I assume a certain level of quality and customer support already exists, but the reality is that this company is coming into the American market, so we're just going to have to see how well they do. But the big change that I would make on the Q5 is actually a slower top speed. I'm guessing that the first batch of bikes is already decided, so if you get one of these, be sure and take it easy when you're racing around town. I was able to get the Q5 to spear through a straightaway at 31 miles an hour. Now, while it's a lot of fun, and I generally believe that people should be able to decide for themselves, the high speed and the extra weight of the frame is a lot to ask on those mechanical disc brakes. With some skill and prudence, I think the seasoned rider would be just fine. Overall, I think the Q5 is a very striking and fun electric bike. For someone looking to stand out from the crowd and get out on the trails, I think it could be a really good fit. For Kixin to embrace the big battery into the well-designed frame shape, I think that's really smart, and this could attract some very loyal customers. Simply put, it's a lot of fun. It's not terribly pragmatic since it lacks frame mounting points for a rear rack or a water bottle, but that's part of the appeal, something so ostentatious that it reflects the personality of the rider. Now, the comment section, that's where you should be right now, telling Kixin what you think of this bike. I'm Mikey for Blue Monkey Bicycles, and I will see you on later.